Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Coming Home, Seattle Clemency Project's third annual Community and Justice Award Gala. I'm Carlton Daniel, and I'll be your host tonight. I'm coming to you live from a beautiful conference room at Davis Wright Tremaine, one of our many firms that partner with SCP. We'll be talking a lot tonight about the value of partnership and how the partnerships SCP has created with law firms, corporations, universities, and schools of law, community organizations, reentry groups, and local and state government offices are driving change within the criminal justice system, promoting justice and equity, and bringing people home where they belong. Joining me tonight are Paul Here, the SCP Board and President, Jennifer Smith, the SCP Executive Director, keynote speaker Alyssa Knight, and Anthony Powers, SCP Reentry Director. And you'll get the chance to hear from them throughout the evening. Now, many of you know that I lead the SCP's mentoring program, and I'm also a survivor of the criminal justice system. When I was 25 years old, I was in prison for crimes I did not commit, and like most of our clients, spent more than 2 decades incarcerated. I know that's what it's like to be separated from family and friends and the community, to experience anger, fear, and hopelessness, to feel forgotten, powerless, and voiceless. I also know that having someone believe in you, in your capacity to be a better person, in your inherent value as a human being, can bring a sense of hope and possibility to a place of darkness and despair, and help transform the idea of coming home from a dream to a reality. I've seen the power of redemption, the promise of remorse, the gift of forgiveness from others as well as from myself, and what that can mean to an individual, a group, a whole community. I've witnessed the positive transformation that can occur within the system when just one person is granted clemency and early release from prison, allowing them to come home to the family and the community they left behind so long ago. And I've experienced the strength of partnerships and making sure that those who come home with the foundational support they need to ease the burden of transitioning back into a life they left decades ago. Tonight, we'll celebrate the men and women who've come home and the many individual organizations, law firms and corporations who have partnered with SCP to make that possible. You'll enjoy entertainment from an incredible local talent, get an update from SCP's board president, Paul Here, hear from the clients and the pro bono lawyers themselves about what SCP means to them, celebrate our Luminary Award winner, Microsoft Corporation, be inspired by a former client, pay tribute to SCP co-founder and all-around amazing guy, John Zuloff, and you'll have the chance to make a donation to help SCP continue its important work. Donating is easy. You can do it at any time during the event or after if that works better for you. Just click on the donate button at the bottom of the screen. You may have to scroll down a bit. You can also send a check to the address on the screen. You can also access our donate page at www.seattleclemencyproject.org. It's that easy. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize our sponsors and the amazing support they provide to the SCP. Our title sponsor, Microsoft. Our leadership sponsors, BN Builders and Perkins Coie. Community sponsors, Davis Wright Tremaine, Foster Garvey, Golan Group, Carr Tuttle, Campbell, and T-Mobile. And our advocate sponsors, DLA Piper, K&L Gates, and Pacifica Law Group. Thank you all so much. It's now my pleasure to introduce an amazing talent, a woman who has acted and sung on stages throughout the U.S., including here in Seattle, at Seattle Rep, Intiman, and the Village Theater, and others. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Shawnice Omar.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's alright. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's alright. Little darling, the smiles are returning in all the faces, and little darling, it feels like years since you've been here. Here comes the sun, doo doo doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright, it's alright. Little darling, it feels like the ice is slowly melting, and little darling, it feels like years since you've been here. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun. It's alright. Oh, it's alright. It's alright. Oh, it's alright. It's alright. Oh, it's alright. Yes, it's alright. Yes, it's alright. Yes, it's alright. It's alright.
Wow. What a powerful video. What an incredible message. It really brings home how much family and community means to all of us. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce the SCP Board President and my friend, Mr. Paul here. Paul, you guys have been doing excellent work.
Thank you, Carlton. And good evening. Welcome to all of you joining us for the first time, and to the many more, welcome back. It is the support of this community that has made this work possible. Now, with well over 200 volunteer lawyers, many of you are personally familiar with the Seattle Clemency Project's work and our efforts to increase access to justice in Washington by matching pro bono attorneys with reform persons, subject to sentences that no longer serve any definable purpose. Now, to truly understand the need for the project's work, we need to bring into focus this state's post-conviction landscape. Washington broadly abolished parole in 1984. And now, 37 years later, together with a small minority of states in our union, we continue to push forward a policy narrative that does not recognize reform, that does not recognize redemption. Over these 37 years, the number of those incarcerated in Washington has approximately doubled. Many of those incarcerated, including hundreds of children sentenced as adults, were convicted during the tough on crime era. Slowly, a general acceptance has formed that the tough on crime era policies in our state, similar to those across the country, cut against the most vulnerable and marginalized in our communities. Individuals often victimize themselves. Our community can't just sit disturbed with this knowledge. We now know that such policies caused an overrepresentation of African Americans serving life sentences in our state, or the thought that any child was sentenced as an adult in our state. It is against this landscape that the Seattle Clemency Project's mission to increase access to justice for reform persons becomes one and the same with our broader moral obligations as a community. And together, we're working to live up to this moral obligation. Hundreds of volunteers, stakeholders, and advocates have, together with the Seattle Clemency Project, accomplished more in 5 years than anyone thought possible. 65 men and women have been freed from prison, 52 of whom were serving life sentences. And an additional 15 have been saved from deportation and permanent family separation. Now, That means our over 200 volunteer lawyers have dedicated over $6.5 million in free legal services. That means 971 years of incarceration were prevented, and another $37 million in taxpayer funds that would have been otherwise spent on incarceration were saved. The theme tonight is coming home. And these free people have come home to a community that is not just repeating the narratives adopted 37 years ago, but one that is working to redefine what justice looks like today. A justice that better serves our community, a justice that better serves our values. Now, much good work has been done, but the need remains. One way in which the will meet the need going forward is on the reentry front. Even with well-earned freedom, after decades of incarceration, comes the practical challenges of returning to the community. Currently, this project has helped those freed with reentry support, providing housing support, financial programming, social and emotional programs, and other services to make sure those released have access to opportunity, that they have a chance to make a better life. The project, looking forward to 2022, will seek to broaden what success looks like for those released by continuing to build out the reentry program, which will include bringing on an additional full-time reentry navigator to support the incredible work that is already being done. Now, your donation can support this work today. You can also support this work with a contribution of your time. You do not need to be a licensed attorney to take the time to educate one person in your network about the need and about the work of the Seattle Clemency Project. While the project community is mighty, we need to bring along the broader community. We need to build understanding, and we need to build empathy. With that in mind, I will leave you with the words of one client who was incarcerated at the age of 14, sentenced as an adult. And now, 23 years later, together with the support of the project and the pro bono representation from Foster Garvey, he is currently sitting at home watching this gala surrounded by his loved ones. In response to what the project work meant to him, he said, and I quote, "What I was given was more than freedom. I was given an opportunity to restore my faith. I was allowed to show my character and my goodness. I was able to demonstrate how a child full of scars could still become a loving man. How a child full of scars could still become a loving man." With that, I thank you for your support, and I will welcome back Carlton Daniel.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Listen, now let's hear from some of our clients and pro bono attorneys. Okay.
I think Seattle Clemency Project is important because there's nothing like it, to my knowledge, that fills such a huge need in terms of helping people access a system for redemption that exists, but is so hard to access without the help of an attorney.
Helped me and guided me in putting all of my paperwork together for clemency and to match me with attorneys that would represent me.
He was a very good person to work with. He came out and visited me as soon as he got the case. And he explained to me also that his wife would be helping him with the case. She's a former attorney.
You're building bridges between the communities, but then also I think you're creating a new pool of advocates.
With the Clemency Project, they're doing it and they're finding attorneys to do it for pro bono so that it doesn't, because if you're incarcerated, you don't have a lot of money. So you're sitting here like, well, I can't afford no attorneys, and that's why a lot of people don't, file for a lot of things.
Because it is a very specific way that you have to do this. Like you have to have all your entire criminal history laid out, you have to have all your judgment sentences from all your cases.
She collected every bit of information she could, and she processed, and we went through it, and it was a process that took about 3, maybe 4 years before it actually came into fruition. But there was always constant work being done, and so it was okay. It was,
David and Byron, and they told a really good story about my life and how it started and how I got to where I am now, and the things that are different about how I see my future.
So I think for me it opens sort of a new set of doors when you have not only a group of people who have experienced the system because they themselves or their family members have been incarcerated, but you also have a set of folks who are like, hey, I understand these systems deeply.
People are not their worst moment. Men and women in prison just are not their worst moment. We all have done bad things in our lives, and a lot of people in prison are also victims. There's extraordinary talent in prison. There's extraordinary, intelligent people in prison, but we have to allow people the opportunity to change and grow too, and become good people.
We had some technical difficulties here, and hopefully you can hear everything a little bit better now, if not very soon. All right. Listen, it's always great to hear from our clients and pro bono attorneys about what SCP means to them. And it's a great reminder of the overall importance of partnership and how we have to work together. They are the foundation of our ability to bring people home and reunite families and communities. Our partnerships with 37 leading law firms and corporations ensure we have some of the best and brightest attorneys in the state providing pro bono legal services and to our clients. Our partnerships with local universities and schools of law mean we have some of the most engaged and energized minds helping develop innovative solutions to complex situations and issues. Our partnerships with community and reentry organizations, local and state government offices, housing specialists, and businesses that train and hire formerly incarcerated individuals make it possible for our clients to have a safe and secure foundation when they come home and start their transition journey. While all these partnerships are essential to SCP's success, right now we're going to focus on some extra time on one particular organization, Microsoft. And here to tell us more about that is the director of SCP's reentry program, my friend and my colleague, Mr. Anthony Powers. Anthony, thank you for everything that you've been doing.
Thank you, Carlton. I've been honored to work with Microsoft over the past couple of years on a variety of projects. It started off as pro bono training and recruiting for people just trying to get more attorneys to work on the clemency and pardons cases. This led to a spin-off of many other projects, one of which was a database to use modern technology to find solutions, equitable solutions for people in the criminal justice system. Another was one of the people at Microsoft reached out, and early on in her career, she was an investment banker. So that spun off to a financial class for people who are releasing to society. And last but definitely not least, Annie Ramos reached out to myself and Jennifer Smith, the executive director and co-founder of the Seattle Clemency Project. And she wanted to do a partnership where they took Microsoft employees and mentored people with career paths who are returning from prison and back into society. So they are partners in the truest sense of the word, not just willing to respond to requests for support, but also approaching us with ideas and suggestions of how they can contribute and help promote change. They embody the spirit of the SCP Luminary Award, which each year is presented to an individual or organization that continually goes above and beyond in their commitment to justice, community, and equity, and shines a light on the potential and possibility of change within the criminal justice system. It is my pleasure to announce Microsoft as the SCP Luminary Award winner for 2021. Let's take a look at a short video that highlights our partnership.
So my name is Grady Mitchell. I was incarcerated for 37 plus years. So I was released this year, January the 28th, 2021, and I'm now 62 years of age.
I've never met someone who's been formerly incarcerated who said, now I have an easy life. It is a very difficult life. I've often heard people say that it just feels like it's a stigma that will follow me forever.
When I was initially incarcerated, I went in angry. I was just really mad at myself. And it took me years, literally years, to get to the point to where it's time for me to do introspection on who I am or who I wanted to be.
There's been this long tradition in the legal profession of carving out time to donate time and skills to help people.
We've been pairing formerly incarcerated individuals who have been granted clemency by the state with Microsoft employees who help them with everything from resume and interview prep to goal setting and general life skills.
I had no exposure to this population before at all, but knowing my strong interest and Microsoft's strong interest in diversity and inclusion and equity, it was really interesting for me and was part of the reason why I was wanting to be involved. The first time I was introduced to Grady, I believe, was in early March of 2021. And I remember he was just really easy to talk to. He'd shared about himself. And I just thought, like, this is going to be a good match.
It wasn't like I was talking to Renata Norman, who's this great recruiter and everything else. It was like I was just talking to someone named Renata. And I was sharing with her that I had participated in the workshop that was hosted by Boston College, Yale University. And I told her about the presentation that I was able to put forth.
And I could tell how much he enjoyed, being on panels and talking. And I'm a true believer that if you can do work that you actually enjoy doing, then why not do that?
I speak about my life. There is no specific topic I target toward the audience. Some of them has been about our connection to the environment. Some has been about how people perceive people that are incarcerated. I was incarcerated at the age of 24, in 1983. And I was incarcerated for murder. And I would also like to say that I had absolutely no right to do what I did. And, but I'm at a point where I won't be defined by my worst mistake. So I like to say that as well.
The thing about Grady that I appreciate is that he's an open book, right? He doesn't make excuses for what he's done. And when we think about accountability, it actually has taught me a lot, probably more than I've ever taught him.
I think what's great about the mentoring program is that people like Renata are getting connected to people like Grady. That's really powerful.
She don't talk down to you. She talks straight to you. She's very honest, and she cares. She absolutely cares about me.
I've gotten more out of volunteering or mentoring Grady than I ever thought that I would. This is somebody, my boss told me the other day, she's like, "You're gonna be friends with Grady for life." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am."
I feel blessed. I'm humbled. That girl, that lady, she's my friend for life. She's gonna be there, and I would hope that she feel the same.
As you just saw, the work Microsoft is doing with SCP is changing lives and has the potential to change entire systems. In recognition of this important work, it is my pleasure to present the 2021 SCP Luminary Award to Microsoft General Counsel Hossein Albar and Microsoft Pro Bono Director Beth Henderson.
Thank you, Anthony, and everybody at the Seattle Clemency Project. On behalf of Microsoft, we are honored to be accepting this award. Pro bono and volunteerism are very meaningful and a high priority for us at Microsoft. As General Counsel of Microsoft's Corporate Legal Affairs, I am thrilled to be taking on the sponsorship of the world-class program that Beth Henderson has built. I'd like to invite Beth to join me in talking about the partnership that we have built with the Seattle Clemency Project. But I want to end with saying thank you.
Thanks, Hossein. So I'm excited to accept the award today and tell everyone a little bit more about Microsoft's great relationship with Seattle Clemency Project. So back in the summer of 2018, Joanna Boyson, who is now pro bono counsel at Davis Wright Tremaine, but at the time was at Foster Pepper, invited Microsoft to participate in a lunch and learn to learn more about the work of Seattle Clemency Project. And I remember going to that lunch and learn with Dave Heiner and another attorney at Microsoft named Leo Nowakowski. All three of us were so interested to learn about the work of Seattle Clemency Project, and we each signed up to take a case that day. So fast forward then to February of 2020, and the Microsoft Pro Bono team partnered with our Justice Reform Initiative to host a screening of the film Just Mercy. And we invited Seattle Clemency Project to join us for that screening. And we got to talk about the great work that Seattle Clemency Project was doing to help advance justice reform in our state of Washington. And then following that event, we planned a big lunch and learn. We originally had hoped to host it in person, but with the pandemic, had to shift to a virtual format. And that event took place in June of 2020. And it was only a couple weeks after the murder of George Floyd. And there was a huge outpouring of interest from Microsoft to learn about justice reform and the work that Seattle Clemency Project was doing. We had over 100 Microsoft employees attend that event. Seattle Clemency Project, not surprisingly, did an incredible job of educating all of us, raising awareness about the issues, and getting us all excited about finding ways that we could contribute time and skills to help make a difference. And what I loved about that event is that we had legal professionals, attorneys, take on individual matters for incarcerated people in the state of Washington, but new and creative pathways also emerged from that event. And one of those was the mentorship program that Annie Ramos developed and that we just learned about in the video that we saw today. And that work continues. Marketing professionals have gotten involved, finance professionals have gotten involved, and it continues to build and grow and create this wonderful momentum of this partnership to really achieve the justice reform that is so needed in our system. And so I look forward to continuing this great partnership with Seattle Clemency Project and thank them for taking the time to recognize the partnership today. Thanks, everyone.
On behalf of SCP, thank you so much, Hossein and Beth, and everyone at Microsoft for all that you are doing to promote justice and strengthen communities. I'd like to now welcome our keynote speaker, Alyssa Knight. Alyssa is a former SCP client while incarcerated, helped create the Freedom Education Program Project of Puget Sound, rigorous college program for incarcerated women, transgender and gender nonconforming people in Washington State. Since coming home earlier this year, Alyssa has enrolled at the University of Washington in Gender Studies and hopes to be a positive role model for others impacted by the criminal justice system. Alyssa, the topic you've chosen in your life and the path, I hope that you continue to blaze the trail for others to follow. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for showing your support for the Seattle Clemency Project tonight. I am personally so honored and proud to be here speaking on behalf of this organization that is very near and dear to me. My name is Alyssa Knight. I am a founder of the Freedom Education Project of Puget Sound, commonly called FEPS. This program was born out of the desire to change the conversations happening inside of and about prisons. And it was driven by an investment in altering the trajectory of people who entered the system with no tools and no hope of making changes in their lives. FEPS was the first degree-bearing higher ed program in the Washington Correction Center for Women since Pell funding was removed under the Clinton administration. At its inception, I helped to recruit professors willing to volunteer their time to write curriculum and teach classes, basically for fun. applied for grants to cover school supplies, met with administration to secure the buy-in needed to function inside a prison, and endlessly petitioned local colleges to take a chance on an unprecedented higher ed program in prison by offering accreditation for free. It was no small task. The public sentiment around investing in the betterment of incarcerated people at that time, especially in the form of a free college education, was not super welcoming. The need for accreditation was evident in order to legitimize and inspire the efforts of the students, as well as to ensure that they would earn this powerful form of social capital, a degree, with which to re-enter the community. In 2014, we began our first 4-credit courses, and in 2016, we graduated our first class with an associate's degree. In that time, we also applied for and won the prestigious Washington Women's Foundation grant for $100,000. That investment was crucial for the development and expansion of our program. It allowed us to offer more classes, to hire a program director, and to bring in more students. Today, FEPS is a full-fledged college education program with a student body large enough to be considered its own campus. And at the beginning of this year, we began offering a bachelor's degree in liberal arts through the University of Puget Sound. I share this story in order to illustrate that to make change in a system, we have to be willing to invest in that change, and we have to be diligent in our commitment. FEPS is only one facet of my involvement in the transformation of the justice system. I am also a volunteer certified yoga instructor for Yoga Behind Bars, and pre-COVID, I offered weekly gentle yoga classes to the incarcerated population. I have been heavily invested in building a safe and supportive community for trans and non-binary justice-impacted individuals. I started a small organization, Beyond Bars and Binaries, and created gender identity awareness workshops to help educate the incarcerated population about the critical topic of gender roles. My goal was to help build a support system for the trans and non-binary incarcerated people, a growing population, especially at WCCW, whose bodies are a constant source of speculation, attack, and abuse. I have been working with disability rights to help implement policy that will protect trans folks in prison, and my organization hosts an ongoing support group in WCCW for gender nonconforming individuals. We have also received a grant to help continue both the education inside and help with resources upon release for this population that is often excluded from DOC housing and program assistance. This continues to be my passion project. So at this point, you might be wondering why I'm speaking for the Seattle Clemency Project. Up till March of this year, I was one of those incarcerated people. From 2004 to 2021, I was inmate number 877859. While incarcerated, I learned about clemency, but it was always shrouded in a veil of unattainability. Very few applied for it, the process was unclear, the criteria was elusive, and the success rate for women, well, in my 17 years at WCCW, I saw 4 people granted release. I also watched a few of my friends who did dare to apply and whom I considered to be extremely successful, smart, and supported be denied. And despite that, in 2015, I decided to apply for clemency myself. And I did not have money to hire an attorney, and I had no idea how to prepare a packet. And surprisingly, I was granted a hearing, and then I was eaten alive. Without representation, it felt like I was kind of a joke. And it didn't matter that I had accomplished extraordinary things because I didn't know how to present them. I was unanimously denied. Fast forward a few years. And in 2017, I was contacted by the Seattle Clemency Project because of my work with FEPS. I had no idea that this organization existed. But where I had given up hope and resigned myself to complete my 23-year sentence, all of a sudden, a small light began to shine again. I was skeptical at first. The initial clemency hearing was brutal, and I was unsure if I wanted to subject myself to it again. Reliving all of that trauma with my family was hard for each of us. And I kind of felt like I just wasn't good enough to meet whatever standard this board had for determining worth. This all changed upon my first meeting with SCP, though. I left that day after talking with John Zuloff's daughter, Emily, having cried together, and feeling inspired. Better yet, I left thinking I may actually have a chance. I didn't even know John yet, but over the coming years, I would get to know him well, like hundreds of emails well. To say he invested in me is a pretty large understatement. My life was changed by this guy. Seattle Clemency Project committed to finding me an attorney, and it took some time. All the while, John was giving me little tasks. Think about what you'll do when you release. Where will you work? Will you go to school? Where will you live? Who will help you each day? These were hypothetical scenarios for me, things I had to keep at an arm's distance to preserve my ability to continue doing prison day in and day out. All of a sudden, I was having to ask my brother if I really could live at his condo. I was securing letters of official job offers for a release date I didn't have. And then one day, John said, well, if you're going to go to school, could you just apply now? Sure, John. No problem. I'll just send off those college apps in my prison envelopes and explain that my start date would be, when I'm maybe released. Because you just don't say no to this guy. He has the biggest heart, and he believes in you, right? So I applied to colleges. University of Washington, Eastern Washington, University of Puget Sound, Evergreen, Seattle U, Gonzaga. And I got in. From prison. Except to GU. They weren't ready to tackle the felon issue. So, as you can probably tell, I'm a pretty self-motivated individual. But John built up my belief in myself because he saw no limitations in me. He continually reminded me that my achievements were impressive, even by the standards of free people. These little tasks he gave me amounted to a huge achievement. SCP secured me not one, but 2 amazing attorneys who also believed in my worth. And with this fully fleshed out release plan and solid support system, we presented such a solid case to the board that they didn't even ask me any questions. They just unanimously granted me commutation. Thanks to SCP, after 17 years, I was released in March. And now, amongst so many other things, I am a student at the University of Washington in the Gender Studies Department. Freedom is wonderful, but there is something else equally beautiful that I witnessed through this process. It was the change that took place in the population at WCCW. The day I was granted clemency, I walked back into my unit after the hearing to 256 people standing outside of their doors and clapping and cheering and celebrating with me. My peers were invested in my success because it meant success for all of us. Seattle Clemency Project took a process that was inaccessible and undefined and made a tangible possibility in people's minds. All of a sudden, people were hopeful. They were talking about potentially getting out early. They were making extra efforts to mend family relationships. They were investing more in the betterment of the prison community. They were signing up for classes, and they were looking forward. They were incentivized by hope, not promise, just hope. It didn't even mean that they would apply for clemency. It just meant that now they felt they could. This is what the work of SCP does. It gives hope. And the truth is, hope is a small seed that grows a big tree. It is work worth supporting. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Seattle Clemency Project's Executive Director, Jennifer Smith.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you. Oh.
What an incredible woman and inspiring message. This year was significant in many ways for the Seattle Clemency Project. We turned 5 years old. Our first 3 women clients were released from prison, and we've greatly expanded our reentry program. This year is also significant because John Zuloff, the founder of the Seattle Clemency Project, is retiring from his day-to-day work with the organization so he can enjoy all the other parts of his life. So we're going to take a moment to thank John for his enormous contribution to the Seattle Clemency Project. I've been working alongside John since the formation of SCP, so I've seen firsthand how he took a hard look at a big problem in our society and believed he could do something significant to make it better. The big problem John was concerned about was mass incarceration. He was especially concerned about our lack of parole system in Washington and the number of people our state sent away for life and long sentences in the early 1990s. Today, Washington has 5 times the number of people serving life sentences than we did in 1986. So what can one person do? That's where most of us land when we think about big problems, but that's not how John operates. John looks at a problem, identifies what's missing, and sees opportunity rather than despair. John looked at mass incarceration in our state this way. He recognized that by putting people away for life with no review, our legal system was forgetting that people change, and we had the opportunity to bring that reality to light. He saw that lawyers would want to talk about a client's story of change, so we had the opportunity to engage lawyers in this great work. He saw that because men and women inside prison feel forgotten, we had the opportunity to show them that we care. And he saw that by providing advocacy where there was none, we had the opportunity to give people hope. And fueled by those simple ideas, John sprung into action and used his community building skills and unparalleled work ethic to build a unique organization that has produced some miraculous results. I've also observed something even more elemental about John's approach. John understands the awesome power of kindness. He understands that bad actions, bad policies, unfair systems, all of them are fueled by some form of fear. And he believes kindness is the antidote. He emits kindness in everything he does. The kind gestures he displays in his meetings with men and women in prison who have every reason to be skeptical draws them out to a place of hope. He trains our volunteer lawyers to approach cases with empathy, care, and deep listening, allowing them to build trust with their clients, which is the key to success. And when his clients are back in the community, he encourages them to continue being the best they can be. I believe that it is that simple infusion of kindness and care into this very hard criminal justice system that has changed the game and allowed SCP to enjoy its current success. John, you've had a life-altering impact on so many people, myself included. You've turned yourself inside out for the Seattle Clemency Project, and for everything you do, we are eternally grateful. We've created a short film to say thank you, and we hope you enjoy it.
Dear John, I have to honestly thank you, first of all, for bringing me on board the Seattle Clemency Project, giving me an opportunity to help many people, giving me an opportunity to help people achieve success. I appreciate you, my friend, and I call you that with all sincerity. I love you, man, and I wish you nothing but the best. And I know wherever you go and whatever you do, you'll achieve nothing but success, because that's all you have been to me. Success. Thank you for being a great role model and someone that I can follow. I appreciate you.
I've tried to find other ways of how you can say thank you to someone. I think the best thanks that I could give to John would be continue to be a better person today than I was yesterday. How do you really thank someone for giving you hope? How do you thank someone for fighting for you as if you'd fight for yourself?
John was an incredible example to me of how to be a criminal defense lawyer. Instead of being harsh and hard, he was kind, and he brought out the best in people and saw the best in people. And that was something I modeled myself after throughout my career, and it really shaped me as a lawyer and who I am today.
In my mind, I was like, this is the guy that's gonna get me out of prison. And it was crazy because when I first went in there, he stood up and he was putting on his coat and he said, Mr. Stewart, I'm so sorry, but I can't visit you today because they messed up on my visitation. He only had like 5 minutes left before he had to go somewhere else. But before he left, he said, Mr. Stewart, I'm gonna have you a lawyer within 3 weeks. And 2 weeks went by, he came and saw me with his daughter. And they had the cameras set up and everything, and they wanted to do a little 10-minute video of me talking about my case, talking about, you know, my life experience inside of prison, my family. And at the end of that 10-minute video, he stood up and said, "I found you a lawyer." And the weight that was taken off my shoulder was so tremendous when I left that visiting room. And it wasn't the fact that I knew that or had any idea that I was going to be free. It was the fact that somebody cared. You know, it was the fact that he took the time to come see me, and he did everything that he said he was going to do. And that was amazing.
John, I want to thank you so much, not only for being my mentor and an example to me for how to be a powerful and empathetic attorney, but also for having the dream of the Seattle Clemency Project and having the courage to make it a reality and pull the community together to make it a reality. It has obviously done so much for our clients and their families and their communities, but it's also given the legal community something to galvanize around that's incredibly positive, and it's changed the volunteer lawyers' lives as much as it's changed the clients' lives. So thank you, John, you're incredible.
John, thank you. I appreciate you. Take care, my friend. Good luck.
Words cannot describe the way that I feel. I wake up every day, I thank God, and I thank you for allowing me to see and have a second chance at life.
You've given me something, man, that so many years ago, I didn't understand what I had. Just the character, just the integrity, but most importantly, my family. My family. Every day I wake up with my wife, my grandchildren. It's because of you. And I just want to say thank you, man. Those 2 words are the best I can do it. You know, I probably could say it's priceless, and it is. But always know that your friendship to me will forever be held in high regard. I'll always be a friend to you, to the family, and especially to the energy of your craft and the energy that you've shown me as a human being. And don't forget, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And you showed me how to continue to be a good man. So thank you, my friend. I love you. Deuces.
I think you can tell from that video that John is an amazing man. I don't know if I've ever met anyone with a bigger heart or a stronger focus on doing the right thing. We're going to miss him at the office. But I have a feeling John won't be able to completely let things go. Something tells me he'll still check in from time to time, because that's the kind of place that SCP is. It's a place people want to be a part of because it doesn't give up, not on them and not on doing the right thing. You heard what Paul here shared earlier. In 5 years, SCP and our pro bono attorneys have saved our clients from serving 971 years in prison, saved Washington state taxpayers $37 million that would have been spent on incarceration, allowed 15 families to stay together with support from the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, and helped 65 people come home. And all these men and women coming home are contributing even more back to the community, getting jobs, paying bills, obtaining housing, mending family relationships, and mentoring others just like them. We've talked a lot tonight about partnerships, about the importance of working together to drive change and promote justice, and how SCP is doing just that. Let's take a look at this video and hear what SCP means to some clients and lawyers.
What makes them different is they actually care.
Well, the Seattle Clemency Project is important because there's no one else that's out here doing this work for men or women that are incarcerated.
They actually interacted with you and came and seen you and actually looked over your paperwork and explained to you things and talked to you.
I didn't understand how many folks actually had supported me in this process.
SCP is pretty much like family to me.
The Seattle Clemency Project, for me personally, it saved my life. You know, it gave me hope, and it gives a lot of other people in prison hope, knowing that this opportunity is out here for them.
So they're that glue, that, you know, that in between that makes everything congeal and work together.
The opportunity to work with an individual and not just work with them trying to achieve a certain goal, but to learn their story and help them tell their story is a really remarkable opportunity, and not one that we get in the day-to-day sort of back and forth, particularly of civil litigation.
Without them, there'd be, you know, a lot of people that are stuck in prison that shouldn't be. You know, and you know, while prison ain't the perfect rehabilitative place, there's a lot of people in prison that rehabilitate themselves, and they deserve an opportunity to come home and fight for their life. And fighting for their life is, you know, important. And without an attorney, people cannot navigate this process.
The Clemency Project provided positive energy and hope for the future.
Out of all the people that I've met through them, everybody's great. Everybody's, you know, actually sincere in what they do, and they care.
And this was the first opportunity I had to represent an individual. And I think it is something that I will continue doing, because it is so powerful, and I think it is really important to remember that in our policies and in our work in institutions, there are real people that are impacted on the other side.
Wow, what an incredible message. I don't know about you, Alyssa, but watching that video, hearing about how much support means to people, makes me want to take some action, makes me want to do something, like maybe
donate?
Yes, that's it, exactly it. And I hope everyone out there feels the same. Tonight, you all have the power to ensure that justice is delivered to those who are most in danger of being forgotten, left behind, and silenced.
Every dollar you donate translates to opportunities for others who feel their options are limited, helps promote hope for the chance to come home, and then provides the support they need for a successful reentry.
Every person here has the ability to make a difference.
So please, if you haven't done it already, it's time to get out those checkbooks or credit cards and give. You can give any amount at any time.
And remember, it's easy to give. Just click on the donate button below at the bottom of your screen, and you may have to scroll down a bit or send a check to the address on the screen. And you can always access or donate our donation page at www.seattleclemencyproject.org. We appreciate all of you who have already contributed and are continuing to do so. People are giving big right now. And you want to know why it is? It's because this is a big issue. We all realize we can have an impact by coming together, joining our resources to drive change in the system and help more people get justice, come home, and flourish and succeed. So let's keep it going. And don't think you need to come in at a high level. Every single dollar makes a big difference. Your donations help build funds such as prison visits to incarcerated clients, mentoring sessions, curriculum, and training for clients, receiving early release from prison, emergency financial assistance for people coming home out of prison who need help with housing, cell phones, food, clothing, and other basic necessities, fees and costs associated with filing petitions with the state's Clemency and Pardons Board.
And what your donations deliver is so much more. They bring hope to those who feel forgotten, unseen, and unvalued because of their past actions, color of their skin, their socioeconomic standing. It validates that the changes made by so many are important and worthy of action. It recognizes that change can and must happen within the criminal justice system. It reunifies families, strengthens communities, and provides access to justice. And it transforms the dream of coming home into a reality.
So keep on giving. And just in case you aren't sure what Alyssa and I were just talking about, let's bring Shanice Omar back to bring it on home.
All right now, we done had us a good time tonight, and y'all know how I like to end. So get on up off your feet, push on back that furniture, kick them shoes off, and come on, dance with me. Come on, Orlando, I think they ready. The best things in life are free, but you can give that to the birds and bees. I need money. Oh, I need money. What I want money. I want money. Yeah. See, your loving gives me such a thrill, but your loving it don't pay my bills. I need money. Oh yeah, I want money. What I want money. Money, give me all your money. Money don't buy everything, but what it don't buy, I don't want. I want money. Yeah. I want that money, baby. I want money. I want money. Yeah. Come on, Orlando, hit it. All right now. Hey! Yeah. Hey! She works hard for the money. So hard for the money. She works hard for the money, so you better treat her right. Don't say that again. I work hard for my money, so hard for it, honey. I work hard for my money, so you better treat me right. Stereotype. The best things in life are free, but you can give that to the birds and bees. I want money. Oh, that's what I want. Yes, give me that money, baby.
Thanks, Shanice. I think you did the late, great Etta James proud. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to the amazing team that pulled this together this whole evening. Remember that our giving platforms are still open. Keep on donating. Thank you very much. Once again, have a good night. Be safe.
All right, let's run that back because that felt good, Orlando. Come on. Yeah. Come on, y'all at home, y'all sing that with me. I want money. Lots of money. Ooh, money. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. What y'all call your money? Sing.